one that we built for the club has some special features that are optimized for people that run these ground stations. That's the slight difference. APRS.net is the primary one for the space station. One of the problems, you can see that it's been 7 hours since a packet was picked up, and then it was 5 days before that. Every time there's a dock, SpaceX delivers food, they turn off the ham radio until it leaves, which could be a week. Yeah. So there's that. So if you're not able to make contact, you might want to double check the calendar for the space station and know if it's a SpaceX dock or not, because that could be the answer as to why it's not working. All right, so that should be that. There's a website called APRS.fi. It's really popular because it'll give you a map of a call sign. You type in a call sign, it'll tell you where it's from, what country. It'll put you right there. You can also see the history of the packets from that device. And it's both satellite and also local traffic as well. Oh, by the way, if you use APRS in your car or for hiking, the only difference is the frequency changes. 144.390 for on the ground, and then 145.825 for satellite. So let's spend a couple of minutes to talk about tracking. So in general, satellite introduces this question of when is the satellite there? And the easiest way to do this is to use a website called Heavens Above and just tell it what you're looking for, and it'll give you a projected calendar. So Heavens Above, I'll show you for example, we could do it right here. It has a page for the space station dedicated, but it also has amateur satellites, which is another screen. But here's the list. So visible tomorrow, wait, what day is today? 15th? Oh, so you have to tell it where you're at. So you see it says unspecified. Step number one is to tell it where you're at by like zip code or something. Else it defaults to 0,0. Okay, so update. Now when I go back, these answers are correct. So this is the 15th. Tonight at 9 o'clock, you can see the space station. Tomorrow at 5 in the morning or at 9:46, you can see the space station. And if you look at the map, this is if you're laying on your back looking up and the north is right there, so it's coming from right to left. This is a hard view for me to get my head around. So you go to ground track, it looks more like an automobile map. So it's coming in from Australia, and at 9:49, it should be like right up overhead. This is really high. This is at, what did it say? 49 degrees. And so, oops, I was going to guess it was higher than that, but 49 degrees is still pretty high. Anyway, you should be able to see it pretty easily. So it'll come in from Australia over the ocean, depending on if it's cloudy because of weather, and then it's going to head out to Utah. And this is kind of funny. You'll literally be able to see the space station, and you look at the time, and you realize that it's over Salt Lake City, and you can still see it. It's kind of crazy. So I highly recommend Heavens Above. My dad and I still use it all the time. There's nothing that we know that's better.
It's about,
What's that?
it's about 8 minutes across that.
Oh, so the time, what was the time on this one? So 9:46 to, let's call it 9:53, 7 minutes. So that's not about time. You buy a little bit more time if it comes directly over your overhead, but yeah, 10 minutes is a pretty good number. Okay, so there's that. Now, it is a ham radio plug, and I imagine there's some software people. I don't know, half of us are probably hardware people and half of us are software people. I don't know. Anybody write software? Okay. Anybody ever bought a Raspberry Pi? Okay. Anybody written Python? So you know that Raspberry Pi gets its name from Python, right? Is that true? I heard that somewhere. So you could write a program in Python. That's what I chose. You can use any language, but I chose Python to write the math that determines where to look now. Because the question is, if you have an azimuth rotator, well, what is the azimuth and what is the elevation now, right? So here's how this works. We go back to 1609 and Johann Kepler. And Johann Kepler created the vocabulary for orbital mechanics, for things that orbit the sun. If you change it, just take out the sun and use the Earth and satellites around the Earth, all the vocabulary stays the same and the basic angles are also the same. So these orbital elements, sometimes they're called KEPs for Kepler. But the basic idea is that you use this math that's on version 4. This is an interesting side note. If you Google satellite tracking, there's actually, from the 60s, Stanford PhD theses on how to calculate this answer. And the funny thing is that it actually is still not perfect. They've gotten to version 4, like in 40 years or whatever, they keep modifying it slightly. But at the end of the day, it turns out that it's not possible to correctly predict the location of anything too far out. And the reason is because lots of factors are causing this to happen. The density of the air in space, I don't know, there's something up there that's the drag changes. I'm trying to think what the other things are. The space station, for example, is constantly drifting back. So they actually have fuel and rockets to speed it up. And when the faster something goes, the more it pulls out, right? The slower it goes, the more it comes down. So if you're to track the space station over a year, it'd actually go like this. It's not perfectly holding its orbit. Anyway, having said that, there's a list of 5 different reasons why, or more, why things don't hold their perfect orbit. Everything is slightly shifting and sliding, right? Not earthquake sliding, right? But changing. Anyway, so what happens is that every week, AMSAT publishes 2-line elements, and embedded into here is a NORAD number for the thing. The space station is 25544, but every satellite has a code, a NORAD number, and in here it tells the last sighting of at like midnight. Where was it? How fast was it going in what direction? And so what you do is you use this last known location, and from there you project out into time. You say, well, in the future, where will it be? And so you create what's called an observer. What is an observer? So an observer is a person at a specific location on the Earth at a specific time at that location. And those 4 dimensions answer the question of where you should look to see the thing. It could be a planet, a star, or a satellite. But you need to know where and when to know the answer to that thing. The interesting thing is that the planets are not that way. So the planets are predictable. I don't know why they're holding a perfect orbit. I don't know why. But satellites do not. Satellites are constantly drifting. Oh, and so anyway. So this word ephemeral, I didn't know what it meant. My lawyer friend did know what it meant because he says there are ephemeral streams. Do you know what an ephemeral stream is? It's a stream that may or may not be there because of the season. But the point is, ephemeral is something that's temporary. And ephemeral is the word, ethem is the word that's used to calculate the location of the satellite because it's not there permanently. It's there for a moment. So anyway, the Python looks something like this. You create this ethem object that you get from pip, and you tell it your latitude, you tell it a date, and from there you can calculate the planets. But you can also give it a 2-line element like we saw a minute ago and use it to calculate the current location of a satellite or the space station. So anyway, if you just Google that, Python ethem, you can download it for free. This is the NASA, the AMSAT once a week download. It has all the ham radio satellites in one big file. And that's how you would pump it into your own program. So anyway, in the 5 or so minutes that I have, let's just talk about the idea of if you were to build them for yourself, what it would take. Can you see there's a little white dot at the top? it's not really hard to see. I mean, it's really hard to see it, but there's a little dot there. And I took that photo because the antenna is pointing pretty close to that dot, and I was proud that it kind of worked. The funny thing about using an ASL during the day is that you have no way to prove if you're pointing at the right thing. So the nights the space station is visible are wonderful because I use that to calibrate. Because I can see the space station, I can see the antenna, and I can see, are you on target? And so that was one of those nights. The way this one was built is just completely from scratch. There are books from ARL, the red one and the green one, and they have samples in there that I discovered after the fact. But they're good. I think this is still, I still like some of these things better. But Adafruit's a website you can go to get Arduino parts. Anybody have any experience with building Arduino projects? So Adafruit's a popular website to get, there's a lot of websites to get parts for Arduino. Servo City is a neat place to get robotics parts. Fry's Electronics carries their products as well, but it's basically like Lego blocks or erector set parts that you can reuse for your projects. If you decide you didn't build what you wanted, you just take it apart and reuse them because they're interchangeable. But that was helpful. And then the basic idea is that you have a compass or some input device that tells you where you're currently pointed at, and then you give it commands to tell the motor to go left, right, up, and down. That's in a nutshell. The first version of this, I've been using the Bosch chip that has a digital compass, kind of like your iPhone has a digital compass. This is what it looks like, the part that controls the motors. It's like a gradient between 0 and 255, so you can actually control the speed of the motor and the direction of the motor. This is the bearing system. I've got one for the AS and one for the L, but imagine the ball bearings of your bicycle. So you have an axle, ball bearings, and spokes. It's pretty strong, right? It can hold 100 pounds, 200 pounds. Same idea with this is that it can actually hold quite a bit of weight and still pivot well because it has ball bearings. And that's how that works. Oh, I should mention, Ron, after swing over here, Ron has a 3D printed version of the ASL that has 3D printed ball bearings too, I think. Is that right? Rich. I'm sorry, Rich. Rich Gordon.
It's airsoft beads.
Oh, airsoft beads. Okay. So anyway, let me show you this really quick. Come over after, but it's a 3D printed ASL thing. All right. And also, Rich 3D printed the bushing that holds my Arrow antenna in the Servo City channel to make it fit perfectly because it helps to have that. But anyway. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. This is Bob, the guy that invented the APRS. This is Frank, the ARS administrator. He was really helpful. And oh, this is a buddy, Jeff. He got me, well, so I was interested in doing this. I told him I didn't know anything about satellite. Long story short, I invited him and his wife, who I had known from college, to Angels baseball game. And I said, Jeff, what do you do for a living? He says, I track satellites. And I said, really? That's really cool. I want to know how to do that. So he got me pointed in the right directions to understand how the basics work. So I'd encourage you, if you want to pick up the project, it's just to ask someone who's done it once and get that extra guidance to know kind of what direction to look. But, yeah. His claim to fame is he had worked on the space shuttle when they had fax. So in the 80s, it was a big deal to have faxing on the space station and have it transmit jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. And then I wanted to, if you could bear with me in the last. Well, we have to actually stop at
a couple minutes.
45. If you just, I'm going to show you this. This is really cool. It'll only take like 2 minutes, but I love this. When we did the Aries contact, I hope this speaker's on. If the speaker's on, I'll leave the picture. Power.
Your caller mic next to the Mac.
The what?
The mic on your caller next to your.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Anyway, so what this is, Bob will remember this. This is the anticipation of waiting for the astronauts to respond. And it feels like it's not working, and like time goes on and time goes on. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
So imagine there's how many people, Bob? Can you hear it? So imagine, I can imagine the stress that Bob's going through. He's up there behind the radio. There's got to be, I don't know, 300 people there.
And it's being piped all over.
And it's being piped to like 10,000 students in the district and like all this stuff. And I just imagine, boy, the stress that Bob is having right now, because it's like we're waiting for the astronauts to respond. But anyway, if you go to my website, you can listen to the whole thing. It's kind of fun just to watch the kids, the questions that they ask. And yeah. So anyway, that's it. I'll wrap up. I'll leave it there. And then I'll be here for as much time as we have to answer questions. And then we'll over at the clubhouse we'll do stuff this summer where if you want to come over, just watch it working and eat food. That's it. Question?
Not a question, actually. You said you didn't have a good app for locating the satellites and stuff. ISS detector is tremendous. It's you have every single satellite that's available, planets, ISS. It's really good about it because it'll actually alert you when it comes close. It'll show you which direction it is, elevation.
That's right. So
you can actually set a watch and do all this stuff. It's really
the
really
Apple
good.
Store, the Google Store. There's probably 10 brands of apps that will also work on your phone. This one is kind of neat because it works on the web. I guess that's why we've been using it. But the neat thing about the apps for your phone is now you can actually hold it up in the sky and it'll show you, it'll say the word ISS, and it'll show you the ISS coming up, so you get it for sure.
You can actually use the elevation, actually point
And then see it. Because the hard thing is that it looks like an airplane, and when it's fun when we're out with a group and like we're trying to figure out the first person to sight the space station, and we'll clearly point out airplanes first, and then it'll ultimately, come overhead. But it does kind of look like an airplane. Yeah. Question?
So the satellites in the space station on the APRS frequency, do they
Yeah.
occasionally send out any kind of ping so that you
Yeah.
can find them?
Yep. So every once per minute, most of them will beacon themselves.
Okay.
And they have telemetry data on them. Like the satellites will give you their battery temperature in Celsius, top, bottom, and middle. And if it's spinning wildly out of control, it'll give you spin data. And you can
Okay.
actually see in the last minute RPM on X, Y, and Z. And then someone will send the codes to get it under control again, because they want it to spin a little bit to just get the solar around the whole thing, but they don't want it wildly spinning. And then most of the satellites have a way to control their spin.
Okay, but it'll give you its current location?
No, it will not. So what you do
Okay.
is by the time,
Oh, okay.
you can calculate that answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to call it right now.
Thank you.
We won't get through our.
Robert, can people get in touch with you if they got more questions or actually want to get into this project?
Yeah. So there's a card in here. Also, spacecommunicator.club is the website. But yeah, feel free to reach out on the way.
All
Thank
right. Very good. Thank you, Robert.